Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Peace Build. My name is Nicholson, and this is a channel to grow your peace, your character, and your evolution as a human being. I have been studying this topic for my whole life, consciously. It came upon me when I was 8 years old, and then again at 15. The age of my body is 27 now, and I'm ready to start teaching what I know. There's many things that we can do to evolve in the world, but the fundamental thing that I have found to do this is through meditation. So this is the title, and the purpose of this talk is Meditation 101. And because of that, the entire vibe of this channel and this episode is going to be meditative. There's not going to be any screen cuts or any music or any sudden movements. It's going to be a stream of consciousness about the subject. So if this is for you, if you want to have a grounded experience as you're watching through the screen, then feel free to stay. If you like excitement, then you should go somewhere else. Nothing wrong with that. But over here, things are going to be grounded. So, a little bit of backstory about me, specifically about meditation, the discoveries I had with it. At 8 years old, I grew up in the Christian church, and there's a whole belief system around that, as you probably know. And within that belief system, there's a God. And I started to ask questions about the God. Because one of the things I was told is that He made this, He made that. He made everything that we see and that we know and love. So I decided to ask the question, well, where did God come from? I asked people around me. Nobody could answer. Nothing in the scripture talked about this. So I asked myself, where did God come from? Just out of pure curiosity. And then my mind went blank. And me at 8 years old, I asked, is this the end of my mind? What is going on? Why is there this nothingness? But as I sit here now today, clearly I understand that that was my first intro into meditation. So for lots of people, God is the source of experience. For me, when I asked the question, where did God come from? I went back to the source of this experience, which is empty. Not that there is no force within there, it's just there's no thing within there. So again, I'm going through the world, I'm filling my mind up with all kinds of things, not really understanding the relevance of that simplicity. And at age 15, I'm sitting in my parents' house, my childhood home. And for some reason, I just wanted to get away from all the noise that I was experiencing. A lot of undercurrents of energy that I could feel that I didn't quite have the language for, but I just knew I needed some space from it. So for whatever reason, YouTube was available at the time, which I'm very grateful for. And there was a video on there about the chakras, the frequencies of the chakras and how they move through sound. And for whatever reason, I closed my eyes, I listened to this video, and I felt this huge wave of peace just flow over my whole system, my mind, my body, my energy. And since then, I have been riding the wave of that. So over 10 years ago, and I've been trying to unfold within myself and my words what that experience was. And through studying myself in different cultures around the world, I've come to give some language to it, which is why I'm able to teach today. And then one more experience happened when I was in college. And again, I had this instinct to want to get away from all the noise. I wanted absolute silence. And I put my headphones on, I closed the blinds. The headphones don't have any music. I thought I just could block out the noise with blocking my eardrums from the outside. And I'm honing in on this desire for silence. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then it gets to a point where all of a sudden there was nothing. There was no sensation. There was no sound. There was no light. There was no nothing. Everything was gone. And all that was left was this vision, this awareness that I was here, that there was a seeing. And because I'd never had that experience before, I freaked out. And my emotions took me back to the normal experience that we have today. And I haven't had an experience like that since. But when I reflect on that, I understand that, again, I was delivered to somehow the source of this experience as I see it. So as I'm going through this talk, and as I'm sharing lessons about myself, I want you all to know, who's watching, that this is all my interpretation. If you think what I'm saying is nonsensical, then you should listen to someone else. But if you think what I'm saying makes sense, then let's see where the rabbit hole goes. So, meditation for me simply means to come back to the center of your experience. Because when we look out here through the senses, there's many colors, many feelings, tastes, smells, emotions, jobs, YouTube channels, personalities. Everything we see out on the surface is very entertaining, but it's really just the surface level waves at the top. So if we use the analogy of a body of water, that the waves at the surface that are constantly changing, they're mesmerizing, but they're not substantial because they are so fragile. And then below the waves, that allows the waves to actually exist, we have the depth of the water that doesn't move very much. It's hard to see because the waves at the surface present such a kaleidoscopic presentation. It just catches our eye. So meditation is going deeper, past the waves, into the ocean, the body. And this is where peace comes from. When I say this channel is called the Peace Build, we are building from this body that doesn't change, is not affected by the waves. In fact, the waves are affected by it. So how do we uncover the middle of your being, the medi of your station? So the first thing I have found within myself and observing history and hearing the stories of other people observing them in real time, I've come to understand that what prevents people from getting to this place initially is the identity. Because whatever you identify with in this experience, that is what your intellect is going to circle around. And the intellect is your way of thinking, your reasoning. But it's important to know it's like a knife, which means it cuts everything up. So this holistic experience that we see today, you can look at it and say, this is a microphone, this is a human being, this is hair, this is grass. That's the intellect. But if you're simply looking at it just as it is, without filtering it through your system of language, that's the whole. And that is how you develop your ability to see, not necessarily your ability to think. And that will come later. So if you identify with a cobbler, you might see the world as opportunities to create more shoes. If you look at the world as an entrepreneur, you're going to look at the world for opportunities to make profit. If you're looking at the world as a painter, you're looking at the world as a piece of art, and so on and so on. If you're identifying as a father, you're going to think about all the responsibilities that you have if you have integrity. If you're the son of that father, you're going to be thinking about how to be a good son to my father. And if you identify with your name and your bank account and your social security number and your Instagram profile, the ways in which you can divide yourself are endless. And you can fall into all kinds of delusion that will take you further and further away from the center of this middle station. And this is the main thing that needs to be removed, but at the same time is the thing that many people cling to, because the identity is what allows us to orient ourselves in this complex experience, what seems to be complex. So if you remove what you believe is your foundation, then you're left with nothing, as I said before. But not that it is nothing. It's not a thing. And if we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and the spirit is not a form, that must also mean it's not a thing. Which means at your core, you must also be not a thing. Not a body, not a mind, not a career path, not a boyfriend, not a girlfriend, just here, seeing. So all of this identity is just within the mind. The mind is a system of ideas. So if you can bring the mind to a place of stillness, then you'll be able to see beyond the asteroid belt of yourself. If you think of yourself as a solar system, in the center there's the sun. As you get further and further away from the sun, things get more and more dark. There's less and less energy, less and less life. This is the same thing as a human being. At the center of your awareness, you are the sun. And as your attention to your own sun grows further and further away from the light, you become divided and darker and colder, and so on. And there's also an asteroid belt within the solar system as well. And this is the part where people don't want to go through, because to navigate through this, you have to go through all kinds of ideas. You have to question yourself. You have to question, why do you believe in these things? Why do I even believe in my own name? Who gave these things to me? Why do I dress the way I do? Lots of people want to go through all that to get to the center, because that's a a balanced way to do it. For most people, they want to go by thought, by thought, by thought. It's much more intimidating to just take the Jenga tower that you've built for yourself and just pull the block on the bottom so everything comes falling. This is what I did on accident. So you can either jump into it or you can gradually move into it. And the purpose of me speaking here today is so you can gradually move into it. To jump, you either have to have no mind at all, as if you're insane. You have to have incredible courage, or you have to trust someone so much that when they say jump, you jump. For me, I think I was in between the first and the second one, because it happened without me even knowing it was going to. So life does that to some people. Life just picks people off from the matrix. And once you get picked off from that, there's no going back. And this is, again, why the identity that people cling to acquire resources and relationships and a sense of stability in the world, they don't want to give that up because it will change your life. Meditation is the transformer of your experience. So if you think of yourself as a vehicle or an elevator, that's a sort of a vehicle that rides through a building. And I say this because when you meditate, you elevate, you rise into more subtle energy. It starts at a dense state and then it goes up in subtlety. And the more subtle you become, the more one you feel with everything because you move with the transient-like nature of life. So if you're this vehicle, this elevator, of course, the more you get into the elevator, the more you stay put, the more you'll have the opportunity to rise up the building. But what lots of people do without even knowing it, I did this myself, they get to the elevator and maybe they go to the first floor and the door is open and they see all kinds of amazing things that make them feel pleasure and pain and laughter and terror and all the entertaining things that you could ever see in life. But that's just one level. And eventually you're going to get bored of it and you see how it's just the same circle going over and over again. And you say, all right, this is enough. This relationship is enough. This job is enough. These people are enough. Let's get back into the elevator and see what else is there. And the thing is, you don't know it's there because you yourself haven't experienced it. But you might hear other people talking about how there's even more amazing things at the second level. So you want to make more money. You want to go to another country. You want to have more friends. You want to do this and that. So you get back in the elevator. You rise up, you educate yourself, elevate yourself. And then you go to the second level. You get out, same thing. It's even more tantalizing. But again, it's the same thing. It's a little better, but it's still just a circle. It's a cycle. And you keep doing this over and over again. You get to the 10th level. You're at the top of the world. You have money. More than you can imagine. You have more friends than you could have ever imagined. You're driving the nicest cars. You've gone on all the spiritual retreats. You have done everything you could have ever thought of. And still there's something that wants to experience more. You want infinity. If you look at this process of desire, you can understand clearly that what I don't want is to be at any of these levels. I actually don't want any of the things at these levels because they're finite. What I'm actually looking for is to break free from this entire game, this samsara. And you can go your entire lifetime without even realizing that. Or you can decide consciously right now that this is how I want to live. And there are many disciplines to see this path and continually go up the ladder that I will speak about throughout this channel. That's too much today, but right now we're just laying the groundwork. So for me, I've experienced this at my age, and I suppose I have an old soul. The fact that I can even see through this and want to keep going. And I want to get to a point where I can elevate up and out the building. If you research people throughout history, you'll see that they've done the same thing. And this is called mukti, or liberation. And this is a cultural example from our nation. Willy Wonka, at the end of the film, one of the last scenes, he's in the elevator, and they're going up and up and up and up. And there's this fear coming because the other two passengers who aren't the conductor, they're like, where are we going? It looks like there's a barrier. We should probably stop, right? Which is what most people do when they meditate and they go on this path. Their energy starts to move from like a Camry to a Ferrari. So you need more balance to navigate the situation. So they're going up and up and up. And he says, Willy Wonka, that we're going up and out. And then they break through the building, and then they're flying through the air in the same vehicle, but they're in another dimension, another space within their experience, their subjective experience. And when you balance yourself at higher and higher levels, this is how you exist. You're in a position where you can be above the vibrations of disturbance, above each and every level of attainment and loss and shame and relationships and finances and everything. We all have to deal with these things, but it's better if you have a higher perspective of them so you don't get caught in them. So you can be involved with everything at this level, but you don't get entangled with it because you're up here. Your awareness is here. And then everything you're dealing with is down here in terms of the frequency, the vibration, the plane. And it just so happens that the structure of this human being, as I see it, is the more you rise, the more you get to the center. Because the center is balance. So no matter what we do in this world, the universe, the one verse that we are connected to, is always coming back to equilibrium. That's the whole game. The only reason why I'm able to sit here now, or you're able to listen to this now, while there's a camera, there's a forest, there's a human being, there's a earth here, there's a solar system, everything is happening because there is a balance, a stillness caused by geometry, the shape, the song of life is perfectly balanced at the existential level. Psychologically, that's a different story. But existentially, everything is balanced. I sit in this posture purposely so I can be balanced. And if you're still here, you can see that I've been fine for 20 minutes. Most people squirm around. They go from topic to topic. But if you engineer yourself with this understanding that life is going to go towards balance anyway. So I've consciously made the decision that I'm going to move towards balance. Life isn't going to drag me there. Because if you notice yourself, you will see that if you inject poison into yourself, if you eat a hamburger from Five Guys, you're going to feel sick after. Of course, if you eat too much. But This sickness is a purging that will bring you back to a sense of sobriety, which is what I will talk about next on the next episode. And this sobriety is simply balance. If you're in a relationship, a toxic situation, and you want to leave, it's because you want to come back to balance. Even if your checking account is off, let's say you have more debt than currency in your account, instinctually, you want to rearrange that because you want balance, because balance is sustainable. The point of life is to live it, to continue. And you can only do this if you have balance. And this is one. There's one balance. Otherwise, there's two things to pay attention to. If you're oscillating between this and that, this and that, this is imbalance, this is diversion. And this is what lots of people do when they try to sit down and meditate, because the identity is pulling their attention in so many different directions. But this is the nature of the physical world, because the non-physical world is one, it's the spirit, it's non-dual, and then the physical is dual, so there's two. So the only way to maintain a sense of balance when there are 2 points is you have to swing. There has to be a certain rhythm. So if you can engineer your life and your thoughts, your relationships, your schedules, just everything around a certain rhythm that's even to the left, even to the right, you will have a sustainable experience. And this is the point, again, of this channel. But it all starts with the ground, oneness, awareness. There's vultures over there. So, now that I have described an intellectual framework as to what meditation is, I'm going to describe what happens if you don't do it. And then at the end, we'll do a bit of a guided practice so you can take something away with you. So if you don't meditate, what will happen is your life will become unnecessarily complicated, because at the end of the day, physicality is all energy. So this body, this mind is just a consolidation of energy, a huge consolidation of energy. And there's different levels where this energy can come out, and this levels will manifest as certain ways of thinking and certain ways of desiring things in the world through the chakra system. So if the energy stagnates because you don't meditate, you don't continually open yourself up. If it stops, just an example, I won't go through the whole thing, but if it stops at the genitals, the base chakra, your main expression in life is going to be about food and sleep and protection, shelter, sex, things like that. You're going to live like an animal simply because the energy is only manifesting at the level of animality. But if you move up to, let's say, the throat, your life is going to be much, much more expensive than it was before. But it's going to be centered around language. You're going to think language is the highest thing. So whenever you read a good book, whenever you do a good speech, whenever you hear a reasonable sounding lecture, you're going to feel amazing. This is the height of my experience. But what's going to happen is you're going to lust for knowledge, and you're going to put so much time into the facts of your experience in the world, your intellect, that you're not going to have enough time to develop a sense of composure as to how to exist in this moment. Lots of students do this. I did this myself for a long time. And I thought that if I just keep uncovering the libraries of the world, then I will become enlightened, or I will experience that peace that I've been looking for so long that I fell upon by accident. And this is a nice bridge to get to where you want to go. But the fact is, the human being, as I said, can go up and out, which means it can go beyond the throat. It can go beyond the language. And once you give this up, once you give up the complexities of uncovering all these belief systems and meeting all these teachers and reading all these books, and you will finally be able to just sit and meditate, then you can do as Willy Wonka did and go up and out. And you will experience what the Zen culture calls as nirvana, which is essentially you take the droplet of water that you believe you are, and you bring it back to the river from which it came from. So when I sit here and I don't talk, I am that river. And sometimes I forget and I believe I'm the droplet, but this isn't the existential case. This is the psychological, imaginary case. Important to know that the way in which you think, the basis of that, the ability to think, is your imagination. So distinguishing what is me and what is imagination is the fundamental practice of meditation, which is what we'll get into now. Not too much time left. So, how do we meditate? A practice that I like to give to beginners is using a mantra. Because at the center of the mind, of your thought process, there is the sound I. Because at the center of how you think, you'll be able to see it's all centered around I. I do this, I'm talking on YouTube, I'm watching the video, I have this opinion, I have this fear, everything like that. So if we can center not on the complexities of I, but on the I itself, we can shrink the disproportionate size of the mind down to a manageable point. And then we can use this shrinkage to go beyond it. So we can do this with a mantra. You can breathe in, I, think to yourself, and you breathe out, am. Breathe in, I, breathe out, am. So what this does is it stops the complexity and brings it to simplicity. And you'll find that the more you do this, the frequency of I and am will become larger and larger. And this will allow you the space to slip your attention, which is the key faculty here. You want to slip your attention between the sound of the I and the am, between those two frequencies. And then you go directly into the space which the frequencies came from. Sound, thoughts, imagination, form, they all come from silence, from nothing. So let's do this now. If you're still with me, if you want to practice, then we can do a short guided one now. If it's time for you to go, then thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. So sit in a balanced posture. in a comfortable position where you can be alert and relaxed. If you're too relaxed, you'll fall asleep. If you're too alert, you won't be able to see what's in front of you. So close your eyes so you're not distracted by the forms of the world. Relax your shoulders. Breathe in. And breathe out. Am. Breathe in. Breathe out. Am. Breathe in. Breathe out. Am. Breathe in. Breathe out. Am. And as you're doing this, continue to keep your eyes closed. And make sure you're attending to the rhythm of your breath. You cannot survive without your breath. You can survive without food and water for a little bit of time, but without your breath, you have nothing. No exchange with the existence. The breath is the life force. So keep paying attention to that breath as if it's keeping you alive, because it is. And go deeper into the eye. Breathe out. Am. Allow your body to relax. Allow the identities that you carry to fall to the wayside, at least just for now. Breathe in at a deeper level. Breathe out. Recycle the breath. And as you go deeper into this experience, notice how the gaps between your thoughts are becoming larger and larger. Notice how there is a clear up of the breath and there is a clear down. And notice how what's allowing you to have an up and a down, an in-breath and an out-breath, is the fact that you can see. So allow yourself to emphasize this ability to see. That's all that matters in this moment here. If your mind has wandered, gently come back to the mantra of breathing in and breathing out. It's simple, it's just I and am. Notice how your body is starting to relax, how your mind is starting to slow down. Any tension in your forehead that you feel, simply let it go. Any tension in your shoulders, let it go. And at this time, if you feel you're ready to shift your attention from the mantra into the silence from which it comes from, at the top of the I breath, you want to bring it down, breathe out, and before you go to am, gently shift your attention into the space. Recognize that this space is solid. It's not moving. There's no opinions. There's no people. There's no places. There's no things. And the more you pay attention to this space, recognize how it's giving you a sense of peace, a sense of groundedness, a sense of being safe in this experience. and recognize how there really is nowhere else to go. There's no one to become. There's nothing to attain. In this moment here, you simply sit. So at this time, continue to explore the space that you have discovered within yourself that was always there. And I will be silent for the next minute or 30 seconds so you can go deeper, so you can go in and out. If you're still with me, just gently come back and notice how there's a clarity of this experience in your heart, in your mind, and take away with you after you leave this episode, this channel, and understand that this is something you can live like all the time because it's balanced. It's not going anywhere. It's just that at the surface, you can forget. On the waves, you can forget that there's an ocean that's supporting the waves to begin with. As far as I've seen, this is the only way to move through this experience of a human being. As many people have said before, the way in is the way out. It is the only way out. You can go through the circus of the world in any direction that you feel like is the best, but you will always have to come back to yourself, the individual, that which cannot be divided. So if you have stayed with me for this long and you got value out of this experience, thank you for being here. This is the start of a book of lessons that I have in store for whoever's watching. This is something that I feel called to do, that I will be doing for the rest of my life. So thank you for your time and attention. The next episode will be about sobriety and the importance of consuming consciously, because this is what will allow you to move through the levels. The next episode after that will be about relationships, because relationships are everything in the physical world. If you don't master that, you're going to have a tough time. And then the last episode of this series of the introduction of the Peace Build will be about material wealth, because at the end of the day, we live in a society which is built, sustained with money. If you don't master money, you don't understand where it comes from, how to earn it, you're going to have a tough time as well. It's not a very peaceful experience. So once a week, I'll be here. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends. That means a lot that you've been here this long. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.